All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Who's Right podcast, and we're coming to you on the Mets day off, and we can't lose today. So let's talk about what's been happening. Anyways, before we get started, like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this with somebody you know. And Victor, how you doing?
Do I have to answer that? Like, how else is a Mets fan doing right now? It does feel like we're living in Groundhog's Day, and we're just not waking up from the bad dream. It's amazing to just think about where this team is because not, I don't think any of us expected them to be this bad. I think a lot of us had tempered expectations, but for them to be this bad, I don't think any of us expected that.
No, for sure. It's not this bad. Nobody expected this hitting to be where it's at. Nobody expected Polanco to be already on the injured list when they were protecting him so much in spring training. Nobody expected Soto to be injured because he usually plays every game. Nobody expected Lindor to get injured because he also plays every game. It's just I mean, you can't write this. You can't write this. This is something that only our movies are made of, and you just can't write the script. But let's get into the pod. I don't know how long we're gonna be here because I know. This is just something that this is a little bit of therapy for Victor and I, and a little bit of for you guys to hear a little bit of therapy as well. So let's get into it. Let's review the week, and we're done. No, I'm kidding. So so we break the streak. We get um, Soto back, and that same day we get Soto back, we lose Francisco Lindor. You can't write that. I'm sorry. I have to say that again. From the week, the only thing that we could break down performances. Obviously, Claim Holmes had a great performance. Nolan McLean started off great, but kind of is he's got to figure out his stride. He's got to figure out how to last after 5 innings because we don't, just like Freddie Peralta. Freddie Peralta also pitched well, but he only got 5 innings. We don't want to start calling Nolan McLean 5 inning Freddie. So Nolan McLean's got to figure out how to get past 5 innings as well. And so they pitched well. Um, we'll do the standouts first before we get into our concerns because there's a bunch of concerns and stuff like that. So Clay Holmes pitched well, Noel McClain pitched well, Peralta pitched well, and we got Soto back, and it's starting to look like Carson Bench is starting to get his groove in. He's starting to get his swing back, and we'll hit the other stuff later. But what's your standout stuff of the week?
No comment on the hitting, because obviously there's no one that's kind of broken out enough for us to comment on the hitting. We had a couple of guys have good days here and there, but no consistent hitting. So I'll highlight the pitching. One thing that I'd like to highlight that I was it always happens when I call someone out, they tend to do well. And Luke Weaver, I called him out a couple weeks ago, and then he steps up in a big way this week. Giving us that win on Wednesday. I think that was feels like so long ago now. And then, you know, uh, kind of establishing his role as the new closer, but the unspoken closer because Mendoza still doesn't want to relieve Williams of that duty. But him being able to step up in that role was great, and seeing him pitch so well was awesome. Our relief has been really good. Even Huascar Braziban, who had some hiccups this past week, he has always been steady, and is pitching whenever he gets the opportunity to. Brooks Raley, it looked like he had a little bit of a bounce back since his last outing and is doing well. And then we had a lot of good relief from. from all over. And then we saw a lot of um, the roster utilized to the way that it's supposed, or the only way that you can really with how it's constructed right now with all of those starting pitchers in the bullpen. And it worked out for our advantage on the pitching side. We weren't giving up too many runs, and the pitching has looked awesome so far this year. I wouldn't say awesome because there are some hiccups there, but the relief has been great. And you obviously pointed out three starters that we can look to and give us 5 solid innings at least, if not more. And so, Clay Holmes looked great, like you said. Noel McLean continues to look like a star, and Freddie Peralta. I think he had a better. He keeps on getting better and better each start he goes out there, and so the key, like you said, is the length out of these guys.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I want to touch on one of the names that you brought up is Brazaban, and he's a guy that he he was even being talked about taking over the closer's job this week. That's how good Brazaban has been. But just like last year, we're using them a lot. Just and I think that's the correlation between him again starting to lose a little bit of his touch on his stuff because he's getting used too much, and all that falls on the concerns that I'm gonna bring up in a second. But yeah, you're right. There's no reason to talk about the hitting, but I do want to say that it does look like Benj is starting to get his groove and starting to get a swing, and so I'm excited to continue to see that. Hopefully he continues to build on that. The one thing that I was disappointed in this week because Mauricio, he's not showing us the power just yet, but you've seen it in a couple of foul ball home runs that he's kind of done. But I would have loved to see Mauricio against Jose Quintana. I don't know why you don't take advantage. This is a 37-year-old pitcher, and he's a soft throwing lefty. And the only question I have for Mendoza for this week, I mean, there's plenty of questions that people may have, but for me, the only real question I have for Mendoza is why wasn't Mauricio playing against Quintana? Why don't you give him a shot against a soft tossing lefty, to see if he can hit right-handers in the major leagues? Why would you sit him against a guy like that? What do you think about that?
Well, I mentioned this before everything looked so horrible, but it does seem like Mendoza is not giving these guys an opportunity to get into a groove. Whenever it seems like a hitter is getting hot, he switches them up in the order or sits them. And I know that you talked me down saying, "Oh, these guys need some rest. We need to try different things out here and there." But when you're trying to have at least a little bit of rhythm, have a little bit of life, at this point, changing things isn't going to work, right? We've lost 15 out of 17 games, so changing things isn't working at this point. And so what you have to do is give some consistency to these guys. Let them figure it out for themselves. Bat them in the same way, bat the same guys. And I know you do want to have these splits, but when you got a switch hitter like Ronnie Mauricio, like you said, you give him an opportunity to shine. When you have young guys that are here and trying to get into a groove of things, like Brett Beatty or MJ Melendez, who was doing so well when he was first called up, and then he gets sat for a week. How do you expect these guys to ever break out of things when you keep on moving them around? And so that was one of the concerns that I had with Mendoza at the beginning of the year, and it kind of got pushed to the side because we've just been playing so horribly. But I'm glad that you brought it back up because it truly is a concern that these guys get pushed around or moved around so much and don't get the playing time that they need to get into a groove of things.
Well, I mean, this is I believe this is a little different scenario, right? The moving guys up and down the order. Mendoza actually addressed it. He said he would rather have a consistent lineup. But when you're not hitting, he's trying to throw everything at the wall. So he's trying to do what he can to break this malaise up. And I'm not too worried about it, NJ Melendez. But when you get told that Mauricio is going to get every single opportunity to play, and then you sit him against a soft tossing lefty, that's what I got to question, right? Mauricio is not MJ Melendez. MJ Melendez is a guy that was a top prospect and now is a backup at this point. Mauricio is still potentially a potential starter in this league. And because of, he hasn't really gotten a chance to prove it between injury and the debacle of last year, he really hasn't gotten the opportunity to actually showcase who Ronnie is. And we thought we were going to get that with the Lindor injury. Why would you sit him against a soft tossing lefty? I just that just I just don't understand that.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it he hasn't been proven at a major league level as a righty, and so I can give Mendoza a little bit of grace there and say, like, put the guys in that you believe that will have the best numbers against him, and that's why he played um, Mark Vientos in that spot. But when Mark Vientos barely has better numbers than he has against lefties or against righties rather, then Mark Vientos, we've talked about him all of the spring training, and he had his moments here and there. He had a moment in this that we forgot to address when we were doing our recap of where he ran through a stop sign and then uh, believed that he what got that moment back by getting us that go ahead hit. But this is really isn't the time to give Mark Vientos at bats. He's already had enough leash with 30 games into the season, and doesn't seem like he's um, the answer for us. And so, if we want to keep on trying things, why not try Ronnie Mauricio? Um, Mark Vientos at this point is not playing a good defense, is not hitting the ball well, and so like you said, I agree. I think Ronnie Mauricio should have played, but I understand why he wanted to give Mark Vientos the at bat there. But at this point, it's enough of Mark Vientos. We don't have to see him anymore unless he's coming off the bench.
Well, you could have sat Beatty. If you wanted to make it a righty thing, you could have sat Beatty. And so, I get that you wanted to keep Vientos in the lineup, but you could have sat Beatty. But I guess we jumped into our concerns of the week because, there are a lot of them. And this is probably going to be the biggest segment of today. And big shout out to Jeff in the chat, Braves fan, giving us stomping on our grave a little bit. Hopefully, we'll come out of the grave like the Braves did in 2022. We'll keep our head up. But back to the Mets and back to the concerns. Uh, let's start with the hitting, right? Because there is some pitching concerns that we're going to get to. But let's keep going with the Mark Vientos and Brett Beatty here. Let's get this straight. The only reason that they're playing is because they don't make any money and they're controllable for a few years at this point. Because these and guys, this is a Brett Beatty fan club here. Victor and I are Brett Beatty fans, but I'm starting to lose it for Brett Beatty. He's too inconsistent at this point, and so is Mark Vientos. Well, I don't know. Mark Vientos, I think, is at this point consistently bad. The little bright spots of power for me are not enough, right? Because if you're not putting the bat on the ball, what does it matter if you have all that power? To be honest with you, I could care less if you have that power. And so, and Alvarez at this point is a big question mark. A guy with that kind of power. I know he was hitting at the bottom of the lineup, but a guy with that kind of power should be hitting in the middle of your lineup. And if putting him in the middle of your lineup messed with his head, we got to question that a little bit. What are your thoughts before I keep going? Because I could keep going a whole half hour talking about these guys. What are your initial thoughts about these three guys?
Well, Alvarez is not a concern for me at all. I think that he still is proving to be a major league catcher. Uh, and I'm not just saying that because he's on my fantasy team, but I do believe that he still has the ability to be a superstar for this team. And if you would have said that last week, that he was batting in the middle of the lineup, we would have said good because he's proven that he deserves that spot. So a week of bad play because the rest of the team is not doing so hot is something I can give him a little bit of ease for because he is one of those guys that is affected by the rest of his team. If the vibes are bad on his team, then we know that that affects him a little bit because he is as much as he is the best as he got tattooed on his neck. He is a team player at the same time. So I think he does feel that effect. But Mark Vientos is, like you said, consistently bad and uh, doesn't deserve any at bats at this point or any starts at first base. Juan Soto's been playing primarily uh, DH right now as he continues to recover from that calf strain, but Mark Vientos shouldn't be getting any reps at first base. You have a couple of serviceable guys that are able to get reps at first base, in Brett Beatty, and you can even play Ronnie Mauricio as he's played there before. And you could even play MJ Melendez there if you really wanted to. But Mark Vientos doesn't deserve any at bats anymore. And I know that sounds harsh because, like you said, we do want to see more out of this guy because he's at team control, but he hasn't proven that he's going anywhere with the team and just decreasing his value by the at bat that he at the major league level. And so, like I said before, change of scenery candidate, dump him for a low A prospect and see what you get in return for that guy. Because I think that's the best that you can do for the kid for both of our situations. But Brett Beatty, I I don't want to keep defending him because I know it just sounds like just a Beatty stan, but and maybe I am, but I still believe in this guy. We saw the monster 3-run homer that he had this year that or this week that sparked the Mets to a win, and I just think that he's a product of getting moved around a lot and trying to adjust to different positions. It's been literally every year with this kid having to adjust to a position. Even at his home position at first base or at third base, he had to adjust to being the guy at third base and trying to get the team powered up. But with him playing there, last year was at second base, and this year is he's been playing. I think he has his most starts at in right field so far this year, and that's a whole new position that he's never played before. And so I think with a little more consistency out of Brett Beatty on the field, he'll get a little more consistency at the plate too. And his at bats have gotten a lot better than they were. He's being a little more patient. He's having a little bit of a better approach, and I think he can continue to build. He got really unlucky with that call. Obviously, that's too close to take on that overturned call, but he would have had it last year, right? He would have had a bases loaded walk, and drove had an RBI because of that. It hurt in the moment, but um, it does seem like he just gets um, it does look like he's lost at the plate at times, but I still believe that he deserves some at bats and another chance to prove himself going forward.
All right. This is going to be the old man part of the section. The um, Back in the day. All right, I'm gonna sound like an old man here, so I'm prepping everybody. I'm gonna sound like an old man. Back in the day, and I've heard Keith say this in the booth. There was a thing that guy said it was too close to take. We've lost the art of fighting pitches off, fighting fouling balls off that are too close to take. When you're 1 centimeter off in your judgment of if it's a strike or not, you should be trying to foul that off and see another pitch. And this is not just the Mets. This is league wide that everybody wants to be so precise in their logic, in their swinging, that they don't know how to fight off the borderline pitch anymore. And I'm sorry to tell you, fight the pitch off is still a thing. You can fight the pitch off and look for another ball or strike, whatever it is. Most hitters get feast on mistakes. That's what hitters feast on is mistakes. And so you fight the when the pitcher is 100% on, which doesn't happen unless you're hitting throwing a no hitter. When a pitcher is 100% on, you can't hit him, no matter who it is, because how many no hitters have been pitched by pitchers that don't have Hall of Fame careers? When the pitcher's on, you cannot hit him. What you can do is fight a pitch off and hope he makes a mistake or hit or a mistake that's in the strike zone, or a floater or whatever, a hanger, whatever it is. But these guys got to get back to fighting the pitch off. I don't understand why Major League Baseball has gotten to the point where they don't know how to fight pitches off.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the baseball analytics, and we saw David Stearns build his whole staff because it is his staff. It's not Mendoza's staff.
Yeah, yeah, but
His
this
whole
is league
staff.
wide. This is league wide. It's not just the Mets.
Well, it's baseball analytics era right now, and we're done with that old way of baseball, old man, and
Yeah,
it's
and that's how you saw Brett Beatty strike out. How many times looking?
well, that's just Brett Beatty. That's just
No,
he's been
that's this
striking out a
is
lot.
yes, but this is league wide where they don't fight off that borderline pitch.
And I get that, but you can't be mad at it if it's league wide. So you can either say that it's Brett Beatty's fault for, um, looking at a pitch that's too close to take, or say that it's league wide and everyone's doing it. But at the end of the day, it was one pitch. He could have swung at it. He could have fought it off
Two
and have
pitches. He struck out
another.
twice looking.
Okay, but that we're talking about one scenario here because there was one scenario that was worse than the other. But at this point, we're crying over spilled milk here. What are we doing? Is Brett Beatty was in a situation where he took a pitch that was too close. My point is that he still is looking decent at the plate. He has some life there. He's not looking lost completely. And he has some at bats that are questionable, but he's got some at bats where um, it makes you open your eyes and say, like, okay, this guy deserves more at bats, and that's all I'm saying about him. Where our concern should be is with these guys at the top of the order. Luis Robert has not been uh, the guy that he's been that he was at the beginning of the year, and it makes you question because when you see his defense, although he's getting to the ball, he's got a Brandon Nimmo arm out there, and I don't know how long we can see him at center field. When you like you said, Carson Bench is looking better and better at the plate, so he's getting those at bat or he's warranting more at bats, and is probably our center field of the future. I mean, we saw him make a fantastic play over the weekend. And so, do we give him more at bats in center field, and have Robert sit a little more? Maybe have him DH some too, while Soto plays the field when he gets better. But
Well, I'm
what's going on with Robert?
well, I'm I saw what you did, Brett Beatty Stan, changing the subject on me, but we'll keep it going and move on to Luis Robert. Let me know in your chat in the chat how you feel about Brett Beatty and this is a podcast that defended Brett Beatty, and one of us is still defending Brett Beatty. Let us know how you're feeling and let us know who's right. Victor's right. I'm right. Let us know in the chat. As far as Luis Robert, here's the thing: he's on a 1 year contract, and you're right. He isn't the same hitter he was at the beginning of the season. I don't know what happened. Did all this bad vibes get to him? Whatever. But if we don't start seeing the guy that started the season, um, guess who just got promoted to AAA? AJ Ewing got promoted to AAA. So he is one call away from being here in the major leagues. And if AJ Ewing continues to tear it up and Luis Robert continues to stink it up for the month of May, I could see AJ Ewing coming up um, in June because you're right. He has a noodle arm for some reason. I don't know what happened to his arm. It's either off the line or rolling in. It's worse than Nemo's. I don't really understand. I don't have any words for that because it doesn't make sense to me. Unless there's some type of injury that we don't know about, but you never know. I don't think there is, but at the end of the day, since AJ Ewing got called up today to AAA, he's one call away. He was lighting it up in Double A for the Ponies, and in and Luis Robert is going to find himself on the bench. I don't think he'll get cut from this team because he could play all three all outfield positions as well. But I could see us letting go one of the other guys, MJ Melendez or whatever. Tommy Pham already got cut today, and so one of the fringe bench players I could see being either sent down or cut, and calling up AJ Ewing next month, and Robert being that bench bat off the bench for us.
I'll um I'll push back on that because, and this will be a good transition into the pitching side of things, but I'll push back on that just because we saw what happened with Christian Scott when he got rushed up into the big leagues. He was overthrowing. He looked horrible in that first start. He had no control, and you could even point to Carson Bench in his first few starts in the major leagues. He was pushing too hard, and his at bats didn't look as great. And I know AJ Ewing looked great in spring training. I know Carson Bench looked great in spring training too, but he just got called up to the AAA. Let's give him some time. AJ Ewing getting called up this year means something went terribly wrong. I don't want to
is
see AJ Wing,
is
and
it
something
already
it
already going
is.
wrong?
It is, but AJ Ewing means that selling off all of our pieces. We're selling off everybody and just, getting whatever we can. And that's the only scenario that we're going to see AJ Ewing this year because I don't think they want to push this kid into the big leagues. We saw how horribly that worked out for us with these past couple of guys that we rushed up into the big leagues because we needed something to happen. And I don't
Well,
want that to happen.
I'm a push back on the Christian Scott. Christian Scott, he might have not been quite ready um, because of injury, not because of and more about how long he can go. Because Christian Scott's already been a major league player. He was here for 3 months before he got hurt when he got called up.
At the same time, though, he got called up early this year before he was ready because the Mets were desperate and needed something. Because yes, he did pitch in the major leagues before, but he was even if he gave us 3 good innings, that would have been good enough. But he had what, 5 walks in this game, walked in 1, maybe like 7 walks in this game. It was something ridiculous, and he was just walking the bases loaded for 2 innings. And so, that is not Christian Scott. Even if even that, even in his starts in the minor leagues, that was not Christian Scott, and he coulda given us a little bit more. But I think because he was pushing so hard and, knew that the Mets needed something, he was trying his hardest to give the Mets some life, and we didn't. And I don't want that to happen with AJ Ewing this year. We need to see something else happen with this lineup, and it needs to be sparked. The only way that people are seeing right now is firing the manager. I don't even think that that's going to help at this point because the guys need to wake up. They need someone to step up to be this fire. We thought Juan Soto was going to be that guy, but we know Juan Soto is just um, a player on the field. Like he leads by example, and so far he hasn't gotten to play any of the outfield, and his at bats have looked, like Juan Soto at bats, but he still hasn't provided that hot streak that we know he can have. And so until something like that happens, I don't think that this is going to happen. But AJ Ewing, I'm happy for the kid to get called up. I'm excited for him next year.
Yeah, I wish I shared your optimism there. Those two, I still don't believe that those two scenarios are the same. Christian Scott's been here before. I think with the Christian Scott thing, he just got what he was just way too amped. That you know, um, he didn't want to lose the spot, and he wanted to do something for the Mets. And it was his first game back from injury to the majors. I just think he was amped up and didn't have his control. This guy is not a rookie. The only thing that I can say about rushing him was, like you said, could he give us 3 innings? Could he give us 5 innings? That's basically the only question about Christian Scott. Because they're building him up slowly, and that's what we kind of expect from Christian Scott. Not that he can't pitch, because I think he could be a solid piece of this rotation. Right now, we can't rely on Senga or Peterson or Mania, and I don't think Tobias Myers is stretched out. So, a guy that we thought was going to be in the rotation. And so I do put those situations a little bit different, but where I hope your optimism does come out is that we don't need AJ Ewing. But since our concern was Luis Robert, I will say that you know if Luis Robert doesn't start hitting, um, AJ Ewing might see the field, because the Mets are just all out of it at that point. And so
That's just a horrible way to, go about baseball. A a team with a payroll like the Mets shouldn't be looking at their one of their top prospects and saying, "This is the answer for us. This is what's gonna solve all our problems," is bringing up this guy, rushing him up to the big leagues because, we just can't hit. These guys that are getting paid millions and millions of dollars, they can't just hit the ball and get hot by themselves. So we got to call up AJ Ewing. That's just horrible for the Mets and for AJ Ewing to get to that position.
no, you misunderstand. You misunderstand. AJ Ewing won't be coming up as a savior. He'd be coming up because we're out of the playoff picture and we're just playing out the year. So he's not coming up as a savior. So no, there are going to be no expectations on AJ Ewing. We're just going to be seeing AJ Ewing because we're tired of seeing Luis Robert strike out and swinging at everything. That's basically what's going to happen.
Well, and I agree with you there. We're not going to see AJ Ewing until we're officially out of the playoff picture, at least, and that means at least until uh, late June, maybe July, depending on how badly we continue to avalanche into this abysmal season. But that's not gonna be next month for sure. I don't see us selling off the team next year and DFAing a whole bunch of guys, next or sorry, next month because, we wanna give these guys as much playing time as possible in the major league level. One, I think we wanna give AJ Ewing a shot at potentially, getting all the at bats that he can get, and at this point, if he did come up next month, then he's gonna be sharing at bats with Robert or something,
Well,
or,
we
someone else.
forget we forget AJ Ewing can also play second base
Well,
because
then
he's another guy that doesn't deserve to be playing, and it's Marcus Simeon.
and that's just another, kind of then you just point the fingers again at David Stearns saying, like, "What are you doing? You brought in a guy that's, I guess, less expensive because he'll be out of here in 2 years rather than 4, but you're still having to cut him this year and not having any value,
No, you
because
wouldn't
what are you
cut
gonna do?
Simeon. You wouldn't cut Simeon.
You
He'd
wouldn't
be
cut
your
him, but
he'd be your infield. If he gets to the point where he's officially done as a hitter, he'd be your second short and third base bench bat.
and so who's being sacrificed in that case then?
Oh, it could be Brad Beatty. It could be Mark Avientos. It could be anybody at this point, because here's the thing. If we continue going down this road of playing the way we're playing, um, we're not going. The only guy that is locked into his position at this point, and the only guy that's locked into his position, and which is the biggest concern, the guy I wanted here is Bichette, Bo Bichette. And the only reason he's locked in is because we want him to turn it around so he can opt out. You know what I'm saying? And so that's the only guy that's locked in. Oh, and Lindor, obviously. I'm talking about the guys that just came in, like a Simeon, Robert, and Bo. Um, Bo is the only guy that I believe is safe, and only because we want him to be opt out of this contract. Remember, we have a bullpen arm that is the highest paid bullpen arm ever in in Mania. So we're not afraid to put these guys on the bench. We had Starling Marte on the bench for a couple of years with his big contract. So it's not about you know um, not putting these guys or cutting these guys, because I don't think they'll be cut. But what's going to happen is just like Starling Marte, they're going to be a bench bat. And we're gonna move it to giving these young guys a shot if we continue playing the way we're playing.
I'm kinda, I don't even wanna talk about these scenarios anymore because it pisses me off thinking that we have such a talented quote unquote roster, and we're talking about moving these guys along and benching these guys so that to make room for other people and basically throwing guys into volcanoes so that we can make things work. And
Well, here,
at the end of the day, they should be working. These guys are getting paid so much money for them to be playing their position well and to take good at bats, and they're just not doing that.
and I agree with you there. But here, the only caveat I'll put to that is if you go back in the archives and listen to one of the pods before Jet Williams got traded, I said that Jet Williams could take Marcus Simeon's job in August if he
Well,
wasn't hitting, because Marcus Simeon is a guy that wasn't brought in here to be a savior, so to speak, or to relive his MVP years. And case in point is that he started batting at the number 7 position. So the Mets don't have high hopes on Marcus Simeon. People need to understand that the Marcus Simeon trade was to open up a spot in the outfield and to get out of the last 2 years of the Nimmo contract. That's all it was. It wasn't. We can't compare the two players because Marcus Simeon, even though he's making the money he's making, he's a guy that the Mets. Sorry, I'm talking about my Giants here. Just got through the draft, but Marcus Simeon is a guy that the Mets don't have this stock, this big stock on because the whole trade was to get rid of the last 2 years of the Nimmo contract. Because if you go back to the archives, you'll see that I even said that Jet Williams could take his job if he doesn't produce by August. And so I am not here thinking that Marcus Simeon needs to turn it around because honestly, I never thought he would. I thought Marcus Simeon would be Marcus Simeon, and or at least the Marcus Simeon in the last 2 years. And so I don't have my hopes. My hope was Bo Bichette, and my hope was that Luis Robert was a change of scenery candidate, and him being out of a bad organization uh, would um, would kind of liven them up. And who knows? Maybe it was livening them up. Maybe because we talked about Luis Robert hitting better in the beginning of the season, and maybe this bad organization right now has got him in the in the dumps again. So I don't even know. But that's the only thing I wanted to say is that I don't think the Mets believed in Marcus Simeon the way the fans expect or think that the Mets expected Marcus Simeon to be this guy coming in here to Queens.
I completely disagree with you. I think that they brought Marcus Simeon in because they were trying to build a championship level caliber team, whether they believed that Marcus Simeon was going to do that with his bat or not, they believed that he was going to do it with his glove. And he was here to play the whole season if we did well or didn't do well. So if we went to the World Series, Marcus Simeon was going to be playing second base. And they believed that he was going to be doing that for the next 2 years because we were supposed to be contending for a championship this year and next year. And the one thing that we you pointed out was that they weren't afraid to bench guys. So trading away Brandon Nimmo wasn't about whether or not his contract was expiring or not. Yes, it gets us out of 2 years, but it really was David Stearns believing in Marcus Simeon's defense over Brandon Nimmo's defense and or bat. That they overall there was a better player in Marcus Simeon than there was in Brandon Nimmo. And the only reason I say that is because Steve Cohen wanted a championship level team this year. And so far, we're not getting that out of either of these guys or out of Marcus Simeon. And so saying that Brett or Jet Williams would have played that position in the future is saying the same thing that Marcus Simeon either Jet Williams was tearing the cover off the ball and Marcus Simeon was down in the dumps and not doing anything, or we're not playing well and we sold off our whole team and Marcus Simeon is playing the bench. And because we know that we one thing that we can agree on is that they're not afraid to bench these players, and the money really doesn't matter with these long term deals because they're really willing to give up the long-term deals. We saw them cut Frankie Montas in the season. Like you said, we have 2 more years with Sean Manaea, and he's a bullpen pitcher getting paid $22 million a year. And we can go on and on with this list, but if they really cared about the what who was playing second base at the end of the year or who was that contract, then Brandon Nimmo would have been on this team because they wouldn't have been okay. They would have been okay with having him play the bench for the last 2 years of his contract. because remember, Tyrone Taylor and so many other guys aren't going to be here in a couple of years, and he could have been that Starling Marte role in this case. So I don't know what David Stearns was thinking. I don't think any of us knows what David Stearns was thinking when he constructed this team in the offseason, but it's just not working with any of these guys. I do agree with you in that Louis Schwarber is probably thinking that he just joined the White Sox over on the in New York and is probably down in the dumps, is not playing well because he's now played for two of the worst teams in baseball with the White Sox in 2023 or 24 and the Mets in 2026.
Yeah, no, I'll disagree with you on the Marcus Simeon stuff, but we'll let everybody decide on that. But one thing that you did say that Marcus Simeon was brought in here for his glove, and and that's why he was brought in here to. And we've seen his glove. His glove's pretty good. So I still believe that, but we'll let you guys determine what you guys who's right here. Is it a trade for straight up for Nimmo and Simeon, which I don't believe, because you don't plan to have a bench bat in the future, especially with a guy like Nimmo. The difference between Marte and Nimmo is that Nimmo would have been here. He's a homegrown Met. There are guys that you can do that with, and there are and usually are those guys that you can do that with is guys outside the organization that you can just sit on your bench like. But Nemo would have been here lifelong. He would have been here from what? He would have been almost 20 years at that point with the organization. So I think it's a little different, but we'll let everybody decide. Let us know in the comments. Let us know how you feel about that. Obviously we're all a little frustrated and stuff like that. So let's get to let's finish this, because we're already at 47 minutes. So let's kind of wrap wrap this podcast up. Obviously there's a lot that we can continue to complain about and talk about, but especially when you're this bad. But who's right? Right? Let's get into it. As hitters, we won't even mention the guys that we picked because we all stunk it up. The Mets stunk it up. And as far as the hitters, Victor picked up Senga. And and guy that they're already talking about sending down to AAA. Imagine that $15 million down in AAA for a second straight year. Uh, you know, so again, Mets aren't scared of the money part of it. So that's the frustrating part because you would think money solves all problems, right? Um, you know, um, but don't ask Jay Z that. But anyways, and I picked McLean, and even though McLean had a good game, the only guy to give it to this week is Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes continues to prove that he is a, a starter in this league. He's figured it out. He started as a starter in his career, then went to the bullpen, and then the Mets convinced him to become a starter again. And he's proven to all of us that he's a major league pitcher and deserves the honors this week.
Yeah, he's really gonna lead the Mets at the end of the year in innings pitched. Every time he goes out there, he seems to go deep, at least 6 innings each time he's out there, which is amazing. His strikeouts aren't as high as we see these these star pitchers in the league, and not like Nolan McLean, but he's efficient, and that's what we like to see is getting deep into games and keeping us in the games at that. And he's done that. each and every start that he's been out there. And so, yeah, I'm enjoying to see that. That's the one signing that we can point to David Stearns and say, you got it right. Um, well, besides Soto, but it really is cool to see him grow as a starting pitcher. And yeah, Senga is a disappointment. No other way to put it. He's we I was so excited about him this year, thinking that he was going to come back, but man, I don't know what happened with him or when it happened, but um, it's just a problem.
It's a mess. It's a big mess. And so let's, obviously we're still 1-1 on the season because Mets aren't giving us anything to really put on the field. So will we be 1-1 for all season? I hope not. But let's preview the upcoming series. Who do we got? We got Nationals coming in, and then we're heading off to California again. I don't even understand that. But what I gotta say, Washington Nationals, a team that's hitting, putting up a lot of runs, but they're also giving up a lot of runs. So this is the team that we're going to see if what the Mets are really about. If we can't hit against the Nationals, that's all you need to know about this season at this point. And then in the weekend, we have the Angels. Angels are playing good ball right now. Soriano's pitching well, and they're uh, um, they're hitting the ball, and so we're going to see a good team out in Anaheim for at least they're playing good right now and playing well right now. So you know, I really want to see what happens in the national series. Are we going to start hitting? Because if we can't hit the Nationals, who are giving up the most runs in baseball, then I don't know what we're going to be doing.
Listen, if we don't know how the season's gonna go, so at this point, then I'm afraid you're in for a rude awakening this week, my friend, because man, I have no hope that the Mets are gonna do anything against the Nationals this week, and even less against the Angels. We know the Angels still have a decent lineup. I mean, they have a fun team, especially with Mike Trout being looking like Mike Trout again. That's been awesome to see, and Zach Neto being looking like a great shortstop option if you're a fantasy player. Um, they've got a lot of fun guys, and so it'll be a fun series this weekend. I'm not sure if we'll get to see Jose Siriano, but it would be cool to see him carve up the Mets, and at least a good pitcher do that, right? Someone that's broken out this year at least, and then it'll be fun to see James Wood and all those young guys on the Nationals. And so, if you're um, if you're a Mets fan, tune in for the other side because there's some fun baseball to be watched on the other side at least, right? But
Well, and one thing about the Nationals, and this is what I'm saying about the Mets eventually, if we don't turn this around, nobody over the age of 28 is seeing the field with the Nationals. It's a young team, and like you said, it's an exciting team. So nobody above the age of 28 is playing on the Nationals right now.
yeah, no, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. They don't have any pitching really. You know, Cade Cavalli is their their ace, and he's not much of an ace. But it'll be let's hope. Let's be hopeful. Sorry, this is me picking things up. Let me pick myself up. Let's be hopeful. The Mets are gonna break out this week, right? And our season's gonna start this week.
What a great transition. Let's end this pod on the high note with our final section and segment, and talk about who's our hitter of the week. And I'm gonna go first, right? Because you get to pick the pitcher first. I know you complained about that last week, and so the hitter of the week, I'm gonna go with a Soto breakout. He's going back to where he started down in Washington. or Washington's going up to New York, and so I think Soto's gonna start picking it up a little bit more this week. You're up.
He's the captain, man. At least until Lindor returns, right? So he's the guy. Um, yeah, I can't argue with that. I'm gonna go with Bo Bichette. He's leading off the games, and he's gotta set the tone. He's gotta set the tone and set the table for Juan Soto, right? And so if these guys can pick things up, batting 1 and 2, then I think that'll say a lot for the rest of the team, and they can follow suit.
Yeah, no, that's I mean, I don't mind that pick. That's a good pick by you because we didn't talk about this, but Bichette stayed about 10 minutes after the game and sat on the bench, looking like the way we all feel, right? Dejected, trying to figure things out. He kind of looked the way we all feel, and so who knows? That may be a turning point for him to continue to get the back going. So there you go, Soto and Bo as the guys that we picked. So you're up. Who's the pitcher for this week?
I'm gonna go with Peralta. I know the easy pick would be to go to McLean or to Holmes, but Peralta, he's looking like he had that bow look on his face after this past start, and knows that he needs to pick his season up because he's in a contract year, and this could be the start of his season where he picks things up. He hasn't had a horrible season, but he hasn't had an ace level season, and so if he goes out, carves up the Nationals in that final game of that series, then I think that he's going to set his season straight, starting this week.
Yeah, no, for sure. That is definitely something to keep an eye on because Freddie knows that he didn't get that extension because he's 5 inning Freddie, and he desperately wants to get that off his back. And I think you saw, like you said, you saw that this week. Him being frustrated, he thought he was grooving, and all of a sudden, a couple bad innings, and then he's out in the fifth. He is trying to improve. So hopefully he does improve, and we start seeing a consistent 6 to 7 inning pitcher by the end of the season. And he does earn that contract extension with the team. And but I'm gonna go with Holmes. I thought that's what you were gonna pick. One of your fantasy guys. But I'm gonna go with Holmes because he's the only guy that's proven to go deep in games. That's it. I'm not going to even continue to harp on this. We're almost at an hour on this pod, and I know you guys are tired of hearing us complain about the Mets. You're probably tired of, you're probably wanting to complain yourselves about the Mets. Let's hope this week, just like the previous weeks, turns it around for the Mets, and let's get an actual good winning streak going on this week, and maybe a surprise sweep of the Nationals, and go out west and take 2 out of 3 out of the Angels. That's the only way I'm gonna feel hopeful. But if we continue on this malaise, we'll I don't even know. I'm like Steve Gelbs right now. I don't have words. I don't get it. But before we get out of here, subscribe to the channel, like this video, let us know how you're feeling in the comment section, and share this with somebody you feel like needs to hear some of this. And yeah, let's just keep it going. Victor, any last words?
Yeah, you know what I was thinking about all week? Not just the draft and the Giants and looking forward to football season, but I was thinking about how this is Howie Rose's last year,
Mm.
and he's at every home game, he's trying to be at every home game, and he hasn't been having the best season so far. So if anything, Mets, please, guys, do it for Howie. Let's go Mets.
Do it for Howie. Let's go Mets.